So this is Monument Valley, which is a fab place to go if you've not been there. When you're allowed out, I recommend going there. We stayed at a place called the View Hotel, which is the only hotel actually at Monument Valley. That's the view from the bedrooms.
Wow.
Yeah, all the bedrooms face into Monument Valley. So that's the view you get. And to give you an idea as to how huge they are, if you look down here at these little white spots, down here, they're houses.
Oh, right.
Right down there.
Wow.
Crikey.
Oh my goodness.
That's someone's house.
Crikey.
You'd be really pissed off if they gave you a room at the back.
Yeah, oh yeah, you would, yeah. I don't think they've got any that face back. I think that's the... And
Beauty of the place.
and it's on an Indian reservation and it's run by the Navajo Indians. But it was I really enjoyed it there. It was lovely. So this is a picture at sunset, but what you can see in the distance is actually the moon rising, not the sun setting. The sun setting behind me. And when you're taking this sort of picture, it's well worth overexposing a bit, which this one is. If you look at the graph up the top here, the histogram, you'll see I haven't got very many blacks at this end, and it looking a bit overexposed, and that's deliberate because that way you're not trying to pull detail out of the noise and you get all the horrible grain come up. That's why, despite this being a relatively high ISO, you can zoom in as far as you can and not have a problem with grain. So that's something that's worth noting. So at the moment we're in what's called camera raw. So when you open Photoshop and you open a raw file from a camera, this is what you get. And the idea of this is it gives you the opportunity to do some basic controls of the image, to put some punch back into it. So with this, I can alter the blacks to make the blacks go blacker, and do a whole load of playing around with the vibrance and the saturation and bring things up. I'm not going to go too much of that in Camera Raw because I want to show you how to do it in layers. So what we'll do is we'll just open that now. So now we're in Photoshop. And the first thing I do is crop this because there's nothing in the sky. So I really don't want most of the sky. There's not going to be anything in the sky. And I want to come in something like that. That'll do for now. So now, when you want to zoom in and out quickly with Photoshop, if you just hold the Alt key and roll the mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out quickly. The other thing that's really useful to know is when you are zoomed in, if you want to move around the image, just press and hold the space bar and this hand comes up. And then you can click on the image and move it around. So they're just two very useful keyboard and mouse commands that just make life easy when you're working on an image. So what should we do with this one? So I want to get some more color in it for a start. It needs to be warmed up a lot. So what I could do is select the whole thing to warm everything up. So if I go to select and click all, you see you get the dotted line go all the way around the outside. That means we've selected everything. And if you go down to the layers panel here, you'll see a little circle with a one half is black, the other half is white. That adds an adjustment level layer. And here, we can go into a photo filter. So if you look down here now, there's the background is the bottom layer, and the next layer up is called photo filter. If I double click on that, I can change it to warm up. I've got the mask. Oh, there it is. Warming filter. So up here in the properties, you'll see we've got a warming filter in there, and we can change what filter we use to give different amounts of warming. And we can increase the effect by increasing the density of that filter. So you can see how it's really warming it up if we do that. So we can, now I know it felt very red at the time, but the sky wasn't as red as that. So what we want to do is to maintain the orange on here, but take it out of some of the rest. And we can do that by editing that there, which is a mask, that white thing. And the way masks work is if they're white, they let the effect through. If they're black, they cut the effect out. So I show you very crudely with a brush. If we make sure that mask is selected, so it's got the little lines around it, and with a brush, if I get the brush to show, I'll just crudely show you what it does. So if I now paint black, and the choice is decided by those two squares over here on the left-hand side, with a black square and a white square. So I'm painting black because it's the black that's in the front. So if I paint with that, you can see I can take out that effect. Now this is really crude what I'm doing at the moment. But the beauty of it is if I don't like what I've done, if I press X once, you'll see those two boxes on the left swap round. So now we've got the white at the front. So if I paint again, I can paint it, put it back. So the beauty of this, of using a layer to put this effect on, is you can put as much of it on as you like. And the way you normally do it is to go up to the top here to the flow controls. So if you imagine your brush is like a spray can, and if you spray with a spray can and leave it stationary on something, it will just get saturated and run. Well, here, 100% means every time you touch it, you get a full dab of whatever you're painting. But if you drop the flow down, it's like very lightly painting whatever you're doing. So what we can do now is, if we do it, we'll see that the effect, hang on, need to have it on black. So even that's a bit too severe. So if I go X again and turn that off, so I can drop that flow even lower to just a few percent. X again, and you can lighten things up more gently. And you can just swing away. Now, this is not very good what I'm showing at the moment. I'm just showing you how you can do things with masks to paint them on and off. Press X again and you're putting it all back. So whatever you decided to do, you're just putting it all back. If you want to put it back quickly, you just knock the flow up to 100% and you can paint it back on very quickly indeed. So that's one way of adjusting an effect, and you can do it with anything that you do on a layer. And the beauty there is that it means you can fiddle about with the image and trim it and keep going back and forward till you get it right, which you can't do with any of the other methods of changing the image. So what we can do with this filter, let's see if another filter looks better. Yeah, so what we really want is it only to be on the rock. So what we could do with doing is getting rid of everything around the back here. And what we could do is probably a quick selection on that. Yeah, so that's not bad.
Good.
So what we've got is all the background now. You can see it's fading out, and we want to change the way that looks. So now that we've selected that, we can put it on that layer really. Add mask. Oh, I can't remember how to do that. I can't remember which one it is. All right, so I'm going to do it manually now. So if I get a brush on here, and I can do it with a softish brush. If you want to check what your brush is, if you, whoops, get a brush. If you right click, it will bring it up. So my brush is super hard at the moment, so I want to take it down so it's a really soft, fuzzy brush. And then I can start painting with X. Oh, that's too much. Control Z. Right, let's get that flow right down. I can get a really big brush now. If you want to hide these marching ants, by the way, as they're called, these dotted lines, there can be a bit of a distraction. If you just press Control H, they go away. They're still there doing their job, but they go away. So that's made that background sky look a bit more realistic.
If when your ants are hidden like that,
Yeah.
and you inverted the selection to do the bottom half, would the ants automatically come back?
Oh, I don't know, actually. We could try that. So if we say that, I'm not going to sit here and fiddle about because that'll drive you nuts. So if we now let's just invert the selection and see what happens. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, did it come back? Yeah, good.
But if you press Control H, you're away again.
Yeah.
So
It's just reassuring to see them again.
oh yeah, if you press Control H, is just a toggle, so you can just turn them on and off every time you press Control H. So so that's easy. So what we could do now is we could do a bit of work on this main rock, and I want to change the selection now. And yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract some bits from the rock, from the main selection. So I'm going to get the lasso, and I'm going to have a big feather. So it's going to be very soft. And I press the Alt key now, and I'm going to take this lot out. And then I want to take all of this lot. Whoops. Stop it. Got an out of control mouse here. Why is it doing that? Just going to get rid of all of that. Okay. I think I know why it is. It's because I got a big feather on it. I've got another way to get rid of that. I use the quick selection brush and press Alt. Wipe it all out. Okay, so now we've got a selection based on that, and I'm going to put another adjustment layer in, and I'm going to do levels. And what you notice there is it's come in with that mask in place. So now when I alter the levels, it's only going to affect that bit. So now I've got access to that rock, and I can just tweak it around a bit to make it look a little bit more dramatic. One of the other beauties of this is, particularly if you label things as you go, call that rock, is that you can turn on and off what you've done. So you click on that little eye. Whoops, get rid of the background. So that's what we started with there. So we warmed it up a bit and then cooled the sky. And then I brought out a bit more in the rock to make it glow with the sun. So that's a way you can fiddle about with the picture just to improve the look of it and alter selective layers. Sorry. And because it's in layers, you can do all sorts with it. Now, one other thing I'll show you here that a lot of people don't use, and that's smart objects. So I'm going to create a new layer, which I've just done. And then I'm going to go up to layers and create a smart object. Now, the beauty of a smart object is that you can use things. I use it particularly for camera raw filter. So if I click that, what we get is camera raw again. Normally we only ever see camera raw on the way in to a picture. And I've got no image. Why have I got an image? What have I done wrong? That's odd, isn't it?
I had the same problem earlier on today.
Oh, did you?
I can't remember how I fixed it. It doesn't help you.
No.
It was really frustrating.
Yeah. I did this last night. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I beg your pardon.
You had to select it all first, Mike.
You have to put a little eye on it.
Yeah. So what I would normally do at this stage is take a copy of everything I've done before. So if you press Control, Shift, and Alt together, and then press E, you get a brand new layer that has got everything before it included in it. So you can when you turn off these layers underneath, nothing happens. So it's like taking a stamp of what you've done so far. If we now make that a smart object, then we can add a camera raw filter. So now we can do a little bit more with things like the texture and the clarity. I'll show you what it's doing. So if I go back to these again, so what we're going to do is just sharpen up effectively the texture in that rock. So it's just a bit more detailed. Just lighten the shadows a bit. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just warm it up a little bit more. Okay, press OK. So that's what we've got now. The beauty of using camera raw like this in a smart filter is normally you can't go back to camera raw because you use it when you're coming into a picture. And then once you've opened it, you can't go back to camera raw again and do it all again. If you add camera raw in as a smart filter, you can go back to it. So I can go back into this and alter camera raw. So if I click, I've just clicked on the camera raw filter down there and we're back in. So if I think I've done a little bit too much in brightening up shadows, I can just bring it back. So it's a really useful way of getting all the controls of camera raw in to finish off an image after you've done a load of playing around with it. So I think that's about all we're going to do with that one. Any questions so far? It's been all very quiet. Am I going over the top or have I totally confounded you?
Yeah.
You're watching that video about 5 times.
All right. I tell you what I'll do. Let me just go to another one and do some very simple things. I don't want to save that. Just to explain some of the basics. Oh, I haven't got a preview on these. That's a shame. Which is which? Let's go for that one. I should have put names on them. All right.
Oh, that's nice.
This is Yellowstone.
Yellowstone.
Yeah. So we could just take this one in as it is, I think. So again, we'll just crop it in a bit. I think I like to have that coming in from the edge like that. Now this is another one where it didn't really look like that. You often find when you're doing morning and evening shots that everything all looks a bit brighter than it really was as you remember it. And there's actually, whoops, quite a bit of color in this. And so what I would do is actually put some extreme color in this. So if I just move that. What's that? One of the ways you can do that is just to put a layer in and then do select all or Control A. Oops. And you see the dotted lines come up all around it. And then what we could do, paint bucket, there it is. Get your paint bucket and then choose a color. Why am I only getting black and white? Because I'm there.
Mm.
Right, so pick a good orangey colour. It's probably going to be extreme, and my colour sight is pretty awful, so I'll apologise for this in advance. Make sure I got the paint bucket. Oh, there it is. So now that doesn't look very helpful, but you can,
Very drop the opacity.
yeah, just
Yeah, just drop the
change
opacity.
just change the opacity of the layer, and you can give it a tint effectively. And we can just turn on and off like that, which works quite well. I'm not sure I've chosen exactly the right color there, but it's a way that you can bring a color in. You can also look at the way you mix them together. So if you go through these different ways of blending a layer, and this determines how that layer mixes with the one underneath it, and you'll see all sorts of different combinations here, and you might find one that actually works. And this might look a bit like trial and error, and it's exactly that. And even professionals do trial and error when they're using these blending modes to see what effect it has. So it's these overlays here and the hard and soft light that generally give the best result. And of course, the other thing you can do with this image is you can use camera raw again to change things. But what I'd often do in a picture like this is I would now do simple things. I get rid of that layer I just messed about with the color layer. So if I was going to do simple adjustments, I would get a lasso, and then I'd have set a big feather, 250 pixels. And what the feather means is that when I draw a line, it's going to gradually fade out over 250 pixels either side of it. So if I hit Control D to deselect, if I use my thing, if I'm just going to go up here and pick this lot. Okay. So now I'm going to put an adjustment layer in, which is that half black, half white circle. Go to levels, and I can now just alter how that bottom bit looks. Okay, so I might want to take that down a bit because I don't want to see the grass particularly on it.
Can I just ask a question about that Lasso Tool? Because
Yeah.
I'm getting flashbacks from my media teaching years and just absolutely hating the Lasso Tool, because if it goes wrong, I was never sure how to undo it.
Oh, right.
When you did that, it kind of, although you went right to the edge of the screen, it seemed to only lasso a little bit further inwards.
Yeah.
Is it still kind of grasping the whole image that you've done there?
Yeah, what it's doing, it's, how can I show the fuzziness? It's putting a feathered edge on the selection.
Yeah.
So because I've got a big selection of 250 pixels, although my cursor went out to the edge, it's spreading out there. So if I do an extreme adjustment here, you can see, if you look at the edge, see if I go there, if you look around the edges here, you can see it's soft all the way around.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so it is grabbing it, but it's only grabbing it a bit.
Right, okay. That's really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what happens if you
And if you go wrong with your lasso tool, how do you kind of undo it? Because I used to find that I keep clicking on the screen and then somehow it would just keep.
The lasso tool is a bit of a pain because the way it works is you keep going, and when you let go, it will just go and do that.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily what you wanted. One of the great tools is this up here, select and mask, which is a relatively new thing. That's come in. Where did that go? It's just disappeared, hasn't it?
You still got a selection in the middle, Mike.
Yeah, it should have picked that up. Hang on, let's go back. Control Z is your lifesaver or the history to go back.
Okay.
Let's clear that selection. And yeah, because all my tools are just shot off the edge.
Yeah. That's difficult.
Yes, it happens to me as well. Oh, I know what it is.
There you go.
Your icons are over the top of the select and mask bit on the right hand side. So let's cancel that. Go back. So yeah, if your selection goes wrong, so let me just do a selection. And if you want to change that selection, if you hit select and mask, this panel comes up on the right hand side where you can change all sorts of things about it. So you can invert it. You can change the way the edges work. You can change the amount of feathering on it. You can increase it. And you can refine edges as well using this tool. So this gives you a lot of scope. It doesn't work very well on a very soft selection like this one, but that's a really good tool for tidying up your selections. Now, although I use this tool to do this particular selection, I probably wouldn't normally use that for this because there's lots of other selection tools. So more often than not, I use the quick selection tool, which is a brush that you just paint over the things you want to keep, and it does that for you.
Okay.
And it's usually such a quick way. And if you happen to go wrong and go out there, if you press the Alt key, you'll see the center change to a minus, and then what you paint is removed from the selection. So it makes it very easy to make a selection and change a selection. And then once we've got that selection, we can use it for other things. The beauty of using the mask for it is that you can then paint over this selection. So once we've got it, the one we had before as a mask. So if I get rid of that last selection, so that one where I did that little bit of adjustment, if I go on there, so the one I did down there, if I decided I didn't want that to affect around where they are, I could just click on that mask and paint using a paintbrush to get rid of the effect up there. So if I go X, and yeah, paint over that. I've got a very low flow at the moment, so you can't see it. So I can just paint over and change how much is included or put it back. So by doing it on a layer like this, it's a very flexible way to alter that adjustment. And of course, the other thing that you've got is, let me just wind that back a bit. Get that more like you want. You can also adjust it by changing the opacity of that layer. So, whoops, that's the effect, opacity of that. so you can just move things around. So that's the way I normally do a landscape picture or something like that, where I've got areas I want to brighten or darken, etc. So in this one, you might want to do something about the sky to try and get the sky looking a bit better. So what I could do there is use the quick selection tool, and because that would do halfway reasonable job. So if I just go along here and like that. So that's done a reasonably good job of selecting the sky. So we'll have that. So we'll make another adjustment layer. And then, yeah. So we'll do levels again because it's a simple thing. So what we can do here is we can change what's going on in the sky. So we make some of it look a bit more foreboding. Oh, that's awful. Oops, too much. That's what happens when you do too much. So how much is that doing? Not very much, really. Just a little bit. And probably the other thing that I would do with this one now is I'd do a stamp again. Control Alt Delete E. Got a stamp. I'd make that a smart object. And I'd use the camera raw filter. Because what I do is really screw up the color balance now. Because that was what it looked like on the day. It was a really bright, fiery orange sunrise. And take the exposure down a bit. So something like that. And of course I can go back and redo that. But what I'd also want to do is another little selection, because I want to brighten him up a bit. Not that much. Small brush. So what I'll do now, having got that selection, is another adjustment layer, and I'll do levels again. And oh, it's messy, isn't it? I need a better selection for that. So it ain't going to work. But if I wanted to tidy that up, I could go on in. We can see what's wrong with that. But so I could go right in, and it would be comparatively easy then with a brush. Get a brush. To control the size of the brush, it's the square brackets. Left hand square brackets to make it smaller brush, right hand to make it a bigger one. And we're going to paint in black now because we just want to take that out. There we go. That sort of works, doesn't it? I'm surprised how good the resolution is considering the poor light and everything.
Mm.
That's Micro Four Thirds for you. So you can see that you can do a lot of detail here just to get it just right.
Could actually go over the tripod because it's black, it won't change.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. So if we come out from there, let's just put a little bit of detail back in there. So I don't think it's the finished image, but you can just sort of see the steps you can go through quite quickly.
So Mike,
Yeah.
if you wanted to say put more mist coming up on the water there,
Yeah.
how would you graduate the blend of that? Is that too difficult a question for this session?
No, it's not necessarily. What you could do, I'm just thinking of a way to put a blend, put some mist in there. So what I might do is select the river. And made a new layer with that in, so we can get rid of the selection. So now let me just check this is going to work properly. No, I need a new, whoops. A new layer over the top. And I'm going to make a selection in there. No, not. Hang on. I'm making this up as I go along. Sorry.
Sorry.
Let's get rid of that one.
You think you could try and clone in the mist?
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was going to make a selection and then clone it in.
Is there a dehaze slider?
Yeah, there is. And you could probably use haze on it.
Can it go backwards or whatever?
Yeah, well, actually, if we went down to the smart filter of the camera raw.
And a grad.
Yeah, let's just see what dehaze does. Not sure that brings it out really, does it?
Yeah.
Probably better to clone some from somewhere else.
Okay.
And I think we're getting a bit involved now.
Thank you.
So let's come out of that. So let's just do a refresh by going right back to the beginning on this. I'm not going to do it all again, don't worry. Oops, it's already there. History. So that's where we started. So the trick here is when you add a mask, if it's white, it lets everything through that's on that layer. If it's black, it stops everything coming through. So if I get a brush now, and it must be when I'm painting on the layer, not on the picture, but on the layer. So if I paint on the layer, what I'm doing now is painting transparency. If I press X, so that the foreground color comes back to white, I'm painting the picture back in. Okay. And that works whatever is on that layer. So if you've put an adjustment on a new layer, then the mask that sits next to it like this, you can paint on that mask in black and white to make more or less of that layer. And you can do in-betweens by choosing an alternative color. So if, for example, you painted with a gray, then it goes sort of half transparent. That's too dark. Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. It goes, rewind. I need a lighter black, gray. Show the effect. So if I make that the foreground color, so you can see I'm painting it and it's going semi-transparent because I'm painting with a gray. And if I reverse and paint with a white, then it all comes back again. Okay. The reason it doesn't come back in one go and I have to go over it is because the flow up here is not at 100%. If I had the flow at 100%, then each single one will wipe it out. Especially if I've got a solid brush. Oh, stop it. It's not white. It's better. So it's just a simple way to make adjustments to an image. Anything you do on a layer, if you put a mask by the side of it, then you can do it selectively. I paint over bits and pieces. I think I'm going to stop there.